This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
The topic for today's meeting is the group conscience process, decision-making process. And to introduce the topic, we have with us our co-host, James Kay. Thank you, James. Welcome.
Thank you, David. I'm going to read some now out of Building CoDA Community Healthy Meetings Matter. And it's a section on group conscience process. Decisions are made in CoDA through a process of thoughtful discussion called group conscience. In this process, every member present has voice and vote. With the help of a loving higher power, members open their minds to all viewpoints presented and then cast a vote for the one that seems best for CoDA. A group conscience decision grows out of the combined wisdom of the whole group. While every person has the right to express opinions, group conscience determines the particular course of action. A group conscience discussion may be over quickly if everyone agrees. In other cases, sharing may continue on for extended periods of time. As people discuss the issue in terms of several different traditions. For some questions, group members may want to announce in advance that specific issues will be addressed at the next business meeting. Ideally, during the group conscience discussion, members reach a consensus. If they do not, then a vote is taken, and the majority reflects the group conscience. In other words, it doesn't have to be unanimous. Group conscience is about putting aside the self, looking and loving to a loving higher power for guidance. We demonstrate our openness to the will of our higher power by accepting the outcome, even when we disagree. This is a humbling process, one that is new for many of us. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, the loving higher power, as expressed to our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. Tradition 2. Through the group conscience, we establish healthier ways of relating to one another. We create boundaries for the group, learn to compromise, and resolve conflicts. Learn more about the group conscience process in the Fellowship Service Manual on the CoDA website. And then I had some readings out of the 12 Service Concepts. And it's the wonderful book. It's the 12 Service Concepts Alive and Strong. It's a 42-page booklet available at the CoDA website, and David will have the link in the chat. And the group conscience process runs through the service concepts like a golden thread. Everything we do, we consult with each other, and it's done through a consensus of all the members. And you might understand as we read through it that it goes from top to bottom in our organization. This is from service concept number 2. The group conscience is a key spiritual element of the CoDA program. It is not the personalities nor those entrusted with responsibility to determine what is to be performed and how, but the group conscience of our members as guided by the individual higher power. As outlined in Service Concept 1, CoDA service work, when directed by higher power, will ensure the continuance of the CoDA program. For this reason, we view those doing service work as trusted servants, trusted because the spiritual method used to decide how they will serve the fellowship and what work they have been entrusted to do. They are given authority and responsibility through the group conscience, and they are accountable to those they serve. Tradition 2 is upheld. What exactly is the group conscience process? As members of CoDA, we experience the group conscience process as one where all the members are asked to participate and our higher power is asked to be the guiding force. When we recite the Serenity Prayer, we hand over our human will to our higher power, and we trust that the decision made is a spiritual one. The majority vote either supports or opposes the decision. CoDA takes the group conscience decision-making process very seriously because all members are accountable and responsible for supporting the group conscience decision. Not just the trusted servants as the group service reps or the treasurers, etc., that were given the authority and responsibility to implement the decisions. For this reason, it is especially important to entrust that each voting member is aware of the impact on the group and CoDA as a whole. To ensure this accountability, it is customary practice for those in service to provide regular reports to group by the group conscience. And that was Service Concept 2. And this book it really explains the current service concepts very well. And they have questions about them. And they have a summary of the tradition or the service concept. Service Concept 3. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, I'll continue on. Service Concept 3. Decisions about service work in the fellowship and all CoDA affairs are made through group conscience decision-making process. For this spiritual democratic process to work, every member of the group is encouraged to participate, consider all the facts and options concerning this issue, listen respectfully to all opinions expressed, then reflect and meditate to find a loving higher power's will. Finally, we deliberate honestly and respectfully to determine the proper course of action. Unanimity in the group is the desired outcome. Majority vote is a group conscience. Service Concept 3 touches on the very foundation of doing CoDA service work. For example, working collectively to spread the message of CoDA using a spiritual and democratic group conscience process. In many ways, Service Concept 3 is an extension of Tradition 2, which states that the ultimate authority in our deliberation is a loving higher power, as expressed to our group conscience. It describes the process by which we come to an informed group consensus. Our experience in CoDA tells us that an uninformed majority can often be wrong, but a truly informed group conscience, speaking the will of a loving higher power, is rarely mistaken. The group conscience process is not about winning or losing an argument. It is about finding the will of a loving higher power to come to a solution that is best for CoDA as a whole. In the group conscience decision-making procedure, no one governs, controls, manipulates, or uses their codependent patterns to achieve their preferred or hidden agenda. There is equanimity. Everyone's opinion has equal value and is given proper consideration. If everyone in the group agrees to the same solution, this is ideal. If not, a majority is sufficient. A CoDA group conscience decision is like that of a functioning family where members discuss issues openly with mutual trust and respect. Members of a CoDA group conducting a group conscience decision are expected to do the same, but to also seek to know the will of and guidance of a higher power, of their higher power. Another crucial factor in this decision-making process is full participation. Imagine a family where one or two members do not wish to join in making any decisions, and compare that to the group where most of the family's members do not participate in the group conscience. In either case, the decision will impact everyone in the family or group. In CoDA, no one is forced to speak, but everyone is encouraged to give their opinion. Before we decide, out of privacy, respect, and not wanting to control each other, we accept each member's decision to be part of the process or not. As well as having a desire for full participation, it is also important that the group conscience be fully informed, that we take special care to ensure that the minority opinion is heard. Those of us who are dealing with the disease of codependence can sometimes find it difficult to question an apparent majority opinion. Fear of conflict, criticism, or attracting the attention of the group have been crippling patterns for many of us. For this reason, it is the responsibility of every member, not just those who are facilitating the group conscience process, to actively seek the minority opinion by encouraging the members who have been mostly silent to share their thoughts. Even if we disagree with the minority opinion, it is essential that all be heard. The minority may have a vital piece of information that changes the majority's mind. They may see a connection to CoDA's principles that others have not considered. If the group conscience is to be fully informed, the minority must be heard. In the minority, if the minority feels railroaded or shouted down, if they feel even mistakenly that they have not been afforded a fair opportunity to participate in the deliberation, there is no real unity in the final decision. Trusted servants who are not working a mature, effective program of recovery can accept a different opinion. They can agree to disagree, but no one wants to be shut out of the process. And so it becomes every member's responsibility to listen respectfully to the minority voice with an open mind. There is a spiritual connection between service concepts and the 12 steps and our recovery. Working the steps is a very personal and spiritual process in which we discover who we truly are. It can help us understand why we do not participate fully in family or group discussions or decision makings inside and outside of CoDA. Completing our step work, traditions work, allows us to become spiritually, emotionally, and physically available to our families, our loved ones, to work, and to CoDA service work. We learn how to bring the will of our higher power into collective decisions we make for the collective decisions we make for the benefit of all concerned. What does healthy group conscience process look like? Depending on the issue, the group conscience can take up to an hour, or it can take 10 minutes or less. During the group conscience, we consider issues that disrupt the group's unity and health. Individually, we seek guidance from our higher power in our own way, and then decide what we think is the best solution. We respectfully listen to each person's viewpoint and then consider what we are willing and feeling guided to do. We may then change our opinion based on what we have heard and recast our vote accordingly. And that's edition 3. Does anyone have any comments on what I've read so far?
Yes, James, there was a question from the group. How do I raise questions And what I'd like to suggest is that you can raise your hand, your virtual hand, using the reactions link option in the Zoom, at the bottom of the Zoom menu, and the host will call on you. You unmute yourself and ask your question. I hope that, so we have, Marilee has her hand up. Welcome, Marilee.
Hi, thank you so much. And I came on a few minutes late, and I hear that it sounds like something is being read, that you referred to something in a book. And so I was asking about what book is this?
Yes. Today's topic is the group conscious decision-making process. And the readings are coming from Building CoDA Community, Healthy Meetings Matter, and 12 Service Concepts, Alive and Strong. Both of these documents are available online. You can view them and download them. They are freely available. I hope that answers your question, Marilee. And thank you for that question. That's an excellent question. So are there any other questions before James continues?
Does anyone have an experience with the group conscience process?
Yes, Marilee.
I imagine everybody has experiences with the group conscience process. My question, though, is in one of my meetings, we were wondering what makes a group conscience, the unanimity or the majority being 51%. It talks about it here in the service concepts at the end of number 3, yet a majority vote, if it's 51%, hardly seems like it's an agreement by the majority of the, you know what I mean? It's not a consensus. And then we have the board that at CSC, it has to be 75%, I think, or 65%, something like that, for the board, before the board decides that it's actually something they have to do, that they have a choice if it's less than that, even though it's more than the 51%. So it's really a confusing piece for me. If you could talk about that more.
Thank you for that question, Marilee. I'm going to lower my hand. James, do you want to speak to that?
I will. Not that I want to answer questions, but each group is autonomous, and if a group takes a consensus and it's 51%, and they want to go with that, they can, or they can say it's not good enough. We want to do better, and they can say we won't accept that, because each group is autonomous and they can do what they feel is best. That's the beauty of CoDA. But so the majority is a majority, and if they want to accept 51%, they can, and that's what it says in the book, and that's the way I read it. And the other thing it says as we read along is that some group consciences take 10 minutes, and some might take 2 business meetings to come to a decision. You have to take enough time, and you have to consider all the minority opinions and all the votes against it, and you have to talk it out. I know when I came into CoDA, it kind of drove me crazy. I was used to getting things done, but how we get things done and our group conscience is more important than getting things done in CoDA. This is part of my recovery, that I have to accept everyone's opinion. So that the majority is majority, as far as I know, and it's anything under 75%. The board votes whether or not to let it happen. Anything over 75, then the group has to. Then then it will happen. Is that right, David?
I'm not sure I have a definitive answer on that.
Okay.
My understanding is, and I don't know if this is what is true, but my understanding is that at CSC, at the CoDA Service Conference, 75% is the guideline for passage of motions that the board must abide by.
Right.
Anything less than that, if it's still a majority, the board gets to decide whether or not to implement and how to implement. That's my understanding of that 75%. But as you mentioned, CoDA, each group, each meeting is autonomous. And as long as the actions of a meeting and group take into consideration other meetings and CoDA as a whole, that is well within the autonomy guidelines. I think the thing that distinguishes CoDA in the decision-making process is most of us are familiar with Robert's Rules of Order to some extent. And the group conscience decision-making process is different from Robert's Rules of Order. And arriving at a consensus and allowing each person in the group conscience process to consult his or her higher power in making a decision is one of the things that sets CoDA apart from other governing bodies. When we deal with issues, whether it's a conflict within the meeting or between groups or members of the fellowship, hopefully we can avoid taking it to the IMC, the mediation committee. So I need help. I forgot what the I stands for.
Issues. Issues and Mediations
Issues
Committee.
and Mediations Committee. Yes, we're encouraged to use the group conscience decision-making process to resolve our differences and issues of governance. And one can read about how it is recommended to implement this group conscience process in the Fellowship Service Manual. And I'm going to put a link to the sections that are relevant to this topic, where you can find the Fellowship Service Manual at CoDA, so that you don't have to go searching for it. If you're in this meeting, I will give you the links for free. And of course, the Fellowship Service Manual, also known as the FSM, is available for free, along with the documents that are making up the topic for today's meeting. So that's probably the long version answer of that question. It really comes down to each meeting deciding how they want to implement these guidelines as found in the Fellowship Service Manual.
David?
Well, a follow-up question on that then. Where in the Fellowship Service Manual, which section, because I know there's many sections, will we find this information about the 75% binding issue versus not binding?
Right.
Where is that?
Excellent question, Marilee. And I'm going to put the links to what I know apply to this. And so.
That's part one.
Yeah. The best thing to do is to download the comprehensive Fellowship Service Manual, which includes all 5 parts. And then, of course, part 3 has, there's more material on group conscience process in the FSM, This is the meat and potatoes sections that I am pointing out. And you can, of course, use the 3 dots at the bottom of the chat box, the ellipse, to save the chat box to your computer so that you can review these links and information at your convenience. It's really easy to do if you're on a computer. I hope that speaks to that question, Marilee.
Thank you. I will be looking.
Patrick has his hand up.
Yes, Patrick, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I do hear you. Yes.
Okay. So I've been around in CoDA for 30 plus years and other fellowships. And so what you're saying about the group conscience is that each group can determine what that is?
Within the guidelines as outlined in the Fellowship Service Manual, yes. That's my understanding, that each let me see, let's quote it correctly. So I'm going to get to it right away and get to the tradition. Tradition 4, each group should remain autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or CoDA as a whole. So as long as it is conforming with the traditions, specifically tradition 4, each group should remain autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or CoDA as a whole. Yes. And also being familiar with the group conscience decision-making process as outlined in the FSM. Yes.
Take my pill.
Someone needs muting.
David, if I could
yes,
just clarify that. The conversation was that if they get a majority, which is one more than half, if the group is not comfortable with that, they can decide not to accept it. That was what I meant about being autonomy. If they don't want to accept it, that's the group conscience, and that's the group, and they're autonomous. They can accept it or not.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that with the following thoughts: that as a respecter of the group conscience process, if it is put to a vote and more than half the people say they are willing to accept a majority decision, if there are people who disagree with that, there should be a process in place for anyone who anyone who objects to that agreement, be able to lodge a minority opinion, and it should be noted in the whatever records of that committee, group, whatever the entity is. There should always be appreciation for each person's thoughts and feelings and ideas in any decision that is made. So there should always be adequate ability to record a minority opinion. Thank you, James, for that. Does that speak to that question, Patrick?
Well, yeah, kind of, but it's always been my understanding, and every service board and committee I've ever served on, that's not negotiable. That a group conscience, which is, more people vote for something than don't. Yeah, I can understand it being noted that there's a minority opinion, but that doesn't detour from the fact that if more people vote for something at any group, then that's what the group conscience is for. Is that, am I off base with that?
No, I don't think you are. I wouldn't disagree with you. I think that if the group decides that, well, first of all, there's the subject of quorum. Before you get to a majority vote, the subject of quorum has to be answered. So if the group consists of, on average, 20 people, and 5 people show up for the vote, and 3 people vote for it, that's not a majority. So majority is dependent upon quorum, and what constitutes quorum also becomes a group conscience decision. Sometimes Robert's Rules of Order do apply in the governance of the fellowship. This gets us into some very, I think, deep conversations. I'm not sure this is the place for that, but again,
Well, it's about this is about the group conscience. That's what this forum is today, right?
yeah.
Yes.
I just want to understand what you're saying. And the quorum is, when you're talking about Robert's Rule of Order, that's not CoDA. Okay, doesn't have anything to do with CoDA. Because a meeting can run that way, but it's not CoDA. And if people want to have a voice in what the group conscience decisions are, it's my understanding that they must attend the meeting. They can't have write-in votes. And so if 20 people sometimes come to a meeting, they're all members who say they are, but they don't come to the group conscience meeting because they're not there, a vote can't be taken. So is that what you're kind of saying?
What I'm saying is that that's a decision each meeting has to deal with. There's no the guideline is that this is where autonomy of meetings kicks in. So some meetings might decide that there aren't enough people for them to take a vote. Another meeting might decide that, you know what, the people that are here constitute the people who want to vote on this issue. And so I've been in both situations where the group decided that there was not sufficient members from the group present to make a decision. I've been in meetings where a handful of people made a decision for the group as a whole that sometimes that worked, sometimes it created friction, and that became an issue to be resolved. So yes. For me, the answer is yes to both things.
Well, that's very diplomatic of you, but what I'm saying is our group, one particular I attend, we know that the first Thursday of every month there's a group conscience meeting. All right, and it's announced at every meeting, so everybody has ample time to know that there's a group conscience meeting, and that if they want to have a vote in what's decided, then they come to the group conscience meeting. And in every situation I've been in, that's my understanding, that if you had an emergency group conscience meeting, like we had to change location, so we had to call a group conscience meeting, but we sent out notices to everybody through the email that has ever signed our book that we were going to have a group conscience meeting about changing location. And that doesn't happen very often, but the norm is everybody knows when the group conscience meeting is. So if they want to have a voice, to show up, because how group conscience works is the majority of what is voted for, that the majority rules. And I don't know, it sounds like it's getting watered down a little bit if that's not the case. If each group can decide that, well, we don't have a quorum, well, it doesn't say anywhere in their traditions about quorum, anywhere. And if we're going to work with the traditions, and that's why this fellowship works, that's what they're not negotiable. And a group conscience is cut and dry. The majority of the people that whatever issue it is, that's what the group decides. Not to say it can't be revisited the next week and then rescinded, but by another majority. If other people don't like it, they can come and vote and make a motion to rescind that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just.
I think I do, Patrick. What I'm going to say is, I think that the intent of this forum was to introduce people to the CoDA decision-making process and where information about it can be found, not necessarily to resolve specific issues or questions. I appreciate the points you're making, and I think that essentially you're right in what you're saying. You're certainly right about the process in the particular group you're speaking of. There, I agree with you as it applies to that body and that group. Absolutely. Again, I think the intent of this meeting was about information about the decision-making process to help people become more acquainted with it, let people know where they can find out more information about it. I think, and you're pointing out, part of the issue is that a lot of people in the fellowship are not familiar with the group conscience decision-making process. And my experience is whenever there is a group conscience meeting or a business meeting announced, that seems to be the signal for people to run the other way. So I think that if we help people become more familiar with the group conscience decision-making process, that might allow people to feel a little more friendly, more interested, and more likely disposed to attend a business meeting or group conscience meeting in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I just was, I'm trying to have clarity here, and that's especially for people that aren't familiar with it. So that really the bottom line is, if you want to vote, show up to the business meeting or the group conscience meeting, right?
Hear, hear.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
Oh, thanks for your question. Thanks for your share, Patrick. Appreciate it.
All right, I have another section to read, and we have a little time.
I think we do.
We come to understand in our service work, we do not make final decisions in isolation or based on one person's opinion. We need to consider our common welfare, because it is with the unity that our best solutions are found. Each member is responsible for being true to themselves, continuing to speak accordingly, because each member's experience, strength, and hope plays a significant role in helping others in their recovery. When members carry their recovery into their service roles, relationships, and personal lives, their trust and faith in higher powers' guidance becomes stronger, and they expand their experience, strength, and hope. This is a never-ending lifetime process. Out of service concept number 5. If I could just add one thing, Patrick was right. Majority is a majority, and we have no control over certain things. And if a group decides to do something, we have no control over that. But the rule is the rule, and he's absolutely right. And I shouldn't have said that. That was just some personal baggage I had that has happened to me in the past. It does not apply. Yeah, and then the last service concept is about the CoDA Service Conference, where all the groups and all the levels come together, and we have a big group conscience, and that's how CoDA works. The CoDA Service Conference guides the fellowship, but does not hold authority over the preeminent rights of a group. This is a very spiritual approach, one in which we have a higher power that guides us, but that also gives us freedom of choice and authority to decide for ourselves how to live and to operate. We are free to do as we wish. Similarly, each group is autonomous and free to do what it decides, no matter the guidance provided by the conference. Groups have the autonomy to do as they wish, yet the conference has the authority to issue sanctions on a particular group consistently violates the steps and traditions. And that was concept.
And James, Kaga has a hand up. Welcome, Kaga.
Welcome, Kaga. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you now, Kaga.
Yeah, I mean, I got kicked. I didn't get kicked out. I think I got dropped. Anyway, I lost the call. How's that? Did I say
didn't
that
drop
correctly? No, I know that. I lost the call, and I'm learning. I'm learning about technology. I'm learning about everything. But what I wanted to share was my very basic experience of how I came along learning the group conscience process, and that is at the meeting level. And, I've been in recovery now. I think I'm going to be hitting, I don't know, I've been here a long time. Doesn't matter how long, but I've been to a lot of group conscience meetings. But I started in another program, and there's like an ongoing joke, if you really want to get angry at somebody, go to a group conscience business meeting. Because that's what happened in the beginning. You go, I was selfish, I was young, I wanted to control things. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was hurt. And I was finding my majority, or trying to find my majority, and not really understanding what service was. And today I'm old, I'm humble, I'm glad to be alive, I'm taking part in the process, and I see clearly that it works, and it works spiritually so well. I had to attend the meetings. I had to want to have a voice. I had to get uncomfortable. I still struggle with finding my voice, but I learned in my early recovery, I had to act as if I was ever going to find my voice. And through that process of just sticking my head out and saying, hey, I really don't agree with that. And of course, my personality, it wasn't exactly the way I said it, lost the call, got dropped. It's all about the inflection. What does it mean? And I think that's how it is in group conscience. Who is aware? Who's got their finger on the pulse of what's happening? Who has experience in business meetings, making decisions on a larger scale? I certainly didn't have any of that experience, but I do now. And I'm learning a lot on YouTube, not just about CoDA, but about board meetings and community organizations and nonprofits and decision making and recovery. I'm learning so much about recovery, in a format. And this is a great service, this fellowship forum, to our members, because the group conscience does create, maybe I want to call it pain sometimes, but I have to feel that pain. I have to recognize that, this is good. I've got to stick with it. I've got to try to understand. And I'm still not good with all those service concepts. They sound like something out of the lawyer's office to me. But I finally have nailed down the traditions. And I finally get what the whole thing is about. And I'm finally participating in group conscience meetings. And, it does go with the majority. And of course, that you get into the larger, the conference and things where you have more people, it's not as adaptable as it is at a home meeting. Home meeting, the leadership makes up their governing things through the group conscience process, and that includes their procedures and their policies for their meeting. And I learned that there isn't just one central base other than a power greater than myself. And that's what I've learned in CoDA. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing, Kaga.
Thank you for sharing.
It is time to wrap things up. James, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I thought it was a good meeting, and
Yeah.
we brought a lot of stuff out, and I wanted to have this group conscience process meeting because the CSC is coming up, and it's great for people to understand the process.
Right.
So I want to thank everybody for coming.
Likewise, I echo that. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully, you will find today's form a beginning, not a final, in any form, word on the group conscience decision-making process. I've put quite a few links in the chat. Let me know if you need them reposted. Let me throw our email addresses up if you want to write to us at yes, you can write to us at the following email addresses. And any last thoughts from anyone before we wrap the meeting up?
Just thank you very much for doing this. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for your shares. A big help in helping me realize what areas we need to be able to speak to and about in this fellowship. So thank you for that. Thank you for your shares and thoughts. And thank you, Marilee, also, and everyone else for being here. Next fellowship form date is May 27th. Of course, the time is 12 noon Pacific and Arizona, and that's Pacific Daylight and Arizona time, 1 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, except for Arizona, which does not go on daylight saving time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And James, do we know what the topic for next month is?
I was hoping to get a suggestion from the group.
Okay. Are there any questions or suggestions about possible topics for next month from the group? James and I are working on inviting people to come and speak to the fellowship forum on specific areas. If you have an area that is of interest to you and you're not saying so now, drop us an email at the included email addresses, either ff@codependence.org or comchair@coda.org. And that will get relayed over to James and myself. And so we're here. Yes, Patrick.
Just a quick thought when you were asking for possible topics, at some point maybe address how trusted servants are voted for and how people can become involved in service work.
Yes. Could you repeat the beginning of that?
How it's gone about to elect trusted servants, and how people can get involved in service.
The subject of trusted servants, how to become one, and excellent suggestion. I will add it to our list of topics. Thank you, Patrick. All right. We'll wrap this meeting up, and then after the close, we'll hang around for fellowship if anyone wants to. Quick group conscience, any objections to closing the formal portion of this meeting now? Are there any opposed? Any abstaining? I'm not hearing any opposed or abstaining. I'm going to say it is unanimous that we close the meeting, and we'll close it with our CoDA closing prayer, which I'll share on the screen. You're welcome to unmute and say along with me. We thank our higher power
We
for
thank
all
you
that we have received from
for
this
all that
meeting.
we received from this meeting.
As we close, may we take with us the wisdom, love, acceptance, and hope of recovery. Thank you again, everyone, for being here and helping make this meeting possible today. With much appreciation. Y'all stay safe, be well, God bless. Hope to see you again next month or in another meeting real soon.